Tessie wasn't supposed to have another sleep study until next month, but I got the call that the hospital had a spot available, and they had a spot available on a weekend. She wasn't going to be able to be seen on a weekend unless I took a spot like in January or February. I think it was late January. And so I had taken a spot midweek in December when I'd scheduled it, like way back. And so when I got the call and I found out that they had a spot available on a Saturday night, I took it right away. Paul has been working. He works until like 3 a.m. on Saturdays. At his second job, I knew that the other kids were going to have to go to Nanny and Bopa's house, and then I was going to take Tessie and I was going to make the 80-mile drive up to the children's hospital. And that meant that Maggie would be spending her very first night away from home without us. Tessie and I went to the hospital for her sleep study. I have spent way too much time trying to count how many sleep studies that she has had. There was her first sleep study at 6 months old when she had 136 hypopneas, desats into the 70s, 45 central apneas, 0 obstructive apneas. There was her second one that came like in March of that same year. That was in December. She had one in March at the Children's Hospital. Then her second one was like more of a 24-hour EEG looking for apneas, in which she had 0. But that was, I think, because the alarm system, they had an alarm that went off anytime she went below six breaths per minute. So she had 0 because the alarm woke her up every time she started to have an apnea. And that was in January. So that was December 2016. 2017, the next one was in March 2017 at the Children's Hospital. And then we had another one in summer of that year. And then we had another one in October of that year, or November of that year. We had one in fall of that year, and all of those were bad. And then, so we must have had another one in April because we would have had to have a redo. And at that point, I didn't realize, like, push them off as far as possible. Now, whenever they say, like, let's schedule our next one, they try to schedule it at 3 to 4 months. And I always now have learned to say, no, let's do 6 months. Can we push it back? Because 6 months is as far as you can go for the insurance. But they try to schedule it as soon as possible, which will be like 3 to 4 months out. I mean, it's the difference. If you do them at 3 months out or 4 months out, you're getting 1 to 2 extra sleep studies in a year instead of doing 2 a year if you do them every 6 months. When I realized that we only had to do 1 every 6 months, I was really irritated that they'd been scheduled up so close, when the scheduler would come in and be like, why don't we do this in February? And I would be like, how about the end of April? And so after they did that 2 or 3 times, it was like 3 times, I finally learned the trick that was like, I want it pushed back to the very last day that you can allow me to take. And so that we don't have these extra sleep studies in the same year, that my child doesn't have to actually go through. We must have had one in spring of that year, and we must have had, at that point I still hadn't figured it out. I don't know if we had one in summer that year, but we had one in November, or we had one in October, and that was the first one that she passed. And they said that was when they tried to take away her monitor. And then we had one in November, which was when I insisted that they do another because of what we were seeing at home, and she was hypoxic. And then she had another one in spring, and that was when she lost the monitor, and they said that she didn't have central apnea anymore because she only stopped breathing 15 times or something like that. And that was when her doctor continued to prescribe it over the pulmonologist, and then we found out from genetics that she had the gene. Then we got a new pulmonologist who says that it still might be something she's going to grow out of, and it's all been really stressful still. So the new pulmonologist wanted to send her for a sleep study. That was a very long-winded way of saying Tessie had a sleep study. We went to the Children's Hospital for the sleep study. It was better than it used to be, because when she was really little it wasn't that bad, but by the time she was a year old, she really had a bad attitude about sleep studies, and it was pretty terrible taking her to them. But this time, I mean, she still cried through it. She was still really miserable, but at least like this time, when I told her like she was doing so good and that she was being such a good girl, she would calm down for a second. And she had this little mermaid doll that had a sequintail that I had just gotten her at Target before we went there, and she was stimming on that a little, and that calmed her down a little. We had Moana on the TV, and that calmed her down a little bit. When they put the cannula in her nose, I was able to explain to her that she needed it in, and that actually really seemed to calm her down too. And in the past, that would not have calmed her down. She would just freak out and freak out and freak out more. But when I was like, Tessie, we need to wear this, we need to keep it in, she actually got calmer. There was actually some huge things that happened. And one of those was that in the middle of the night, she woke up and she was really upset about the cannula. And it was because she started crying about the cannula, and she got so upset that she got stuffy and couldn't breathe through her nose. And then she was really upset because she was trying to suck on her thumb, but she couldn't breathe through her nose. And so we had a problem. So she was just loudly sniffling with the cannula and trying to suck her thumb. And I said, Tessie, you can breathe through your mouth. You need to breathe through your mouth. Open your mouth. You can breathe through your mouth. And she goes and shakes her head in response. And I was like, and I go, yes, you can, honey. You can breathe through your mouth. And she goes, still sucking on her thumb, and shakes her head. And she shook her head no at me 3 times. And in the last few days since then, in response to me, when I've told her things that she didn't want to do, she has shaken her head at me multiple times in response, which is extremely exciting. I mean, I'd never seen her do that before. And I mean, it was in a time when she was upset and stressed out, and she understood that I was telling her that she could breathe through her mouth, and she was telling me no. So, I mean, that is some awesome receptive language, and I was so excited. I mean, I was feeling really bad for her because she was upset, but I was also super excited that she obviously understood what I was saying, and she was telling me no. And she was able to express that to me. So that was pretty cool. But it was neat being able to actually calm her down and tell her things and have her understand what I was telling her and be calmed by words. That made it easier than I expected it to be. She did keep trying to go over and get in her stroller to go home. She repeatedly went over and sat down in the little umbrella stroller, which she usually hates the umbrella stroller, but while we were there she kept going over and sitting down in it and I'm like, okay mom, let's go. Anyways, it's done. I haven't gotten the results back. It's Monday and they haven't called me, and that means at least that it wasn't super bad results, because if they were going to be ordering oxygen for her, they would have already probably called me and told me the oxygen company was on its way. So I guess we'll see. Anyways, that is I don't even know how many sleep studies. I keep hoping, this last time when we were there, I kept hoping that maybe this is it, maybe this is our last one. I really don't want to get my hopes up. It's if it is our last one, can I really trust that it's over based on what we see at home when she's still having desats and I still see her not breathing at home? Last night she stopped breathing several times. I went out, I put my hand on her chest, I put my hand on her stomach. I watched her not breathing. Do I just accept that now? I don't know. I am very, very tired of sleep studies. I want to believe that we're done. Anyways, I gotta go get these kids fed lunch, and I'll update when I have news to update with. That's it for today. Bye.
Look at you. Look at you. I'm getting all the stuff out of your hair, huh? Mama. You ready? We're gonna rinse it now, okay?